So it's time for another coaching feedback video. This week I've got some clips from Peter and he sent me some videos of him shooting and asked if I could have a look. So today I'm going to have a look at the videos and give some feedback as to the areas that he can improve and how he can improve these. So let's roll the intro and then watch the video. So before we get started, Peter said he is a reasonable level shooter already, shoots around about 575, that kind of level on a Portsmouth, which is a tournament round in the UK, but he wants to find some other areas how he can improve, and let's look at the videos first and then I'll go over these. So those were the videos of Peter shooting. I want to focus on a couple of main areas here that are going to give the biggest improvement. First of all, the set position. Second, the connection and the line between the draw side, which includes the hook. And then third, the release and the follow through. So these are a couple of the key things I want to focus on, and we'll start, because it affects everything else, we'll start with the set position, and that's the key thing here. So what you'll see is if we look at the video again, you'll see at the set position, Peter's technique is a little bit too closed. So what you need to do here, Peter, is instead of at the set position at the moment, when you come up, there is a slight lean back, as you can see in the video, there's a slight lean back, and then also at the set position, you're quite closed in terms of the draw hand is too close to the bow side here, and then also the shoulder on this side is too high because of this movement that you're doing. So the hand is too close, the wrist is a bit kinked and bent, and then the shoulder is too tense here, which makes it hard to then lift the bow and keep the upper shoulders and neck relaxed. So when you're here at the moment, it's a little bit like this, and as you can see, the wrist is bent, the upper traps here are more tense, and then when you go to lift, it's very hard to lift without engaging the upper traps and drawing like that. So this is the first area to make sure of. You want to make sure that the posture is maintained. When you lift here, it should be like this, not like this. So make sure the posture is maintained. Then make sure that the hand is not too close to this side. So what you can do here is just slightly angle the bow to the left and move the draw hand away from the bow side. So what this will look like is, rather than being here, just like that, just a tiny bit. So rather than being too closed like this, you're just opening out, and notice how the arm here, as you can see in the video, the arm is much straighter when you do that. So that's a key thing there, and that's really something that you want to make sure of and get correct so that you can open the bow in a better way and remove some of that tension in the upper traps. So that's a key point there. Now the second point is to do with the wrist, the draw hand, and the connection to the front of the shot. So as you can see in the video here, there's quite an angle between the hand and the arm, and you can see this from the front and back. There's an angle here, and you can see that the hand is quite tense and there isn't really a connection to the draw elbow. So it's really important to get this and basically learn how to do this. So instead of, at the moment, when you come up, it's too closed and there's that kink in the wrist and it's quite forced. What you want to do is learn to relax the wrist out and maybe make sure to keep this line. It might feel like you're pushing the wrist outwards, but it's actually just going to be straight because you're used to having the wrist inwards like that. So maybe feel like you're pushing the wrist outwards. So rather than being here, maybe feel like you're pushing it outwards slightly and make sure that it's maintained the connection through this draw side rather than having this angle and kink that you can see in the video here. And this is really going to make a big difference. You want to make sure that your hook is somewhere around the first finger joints and make sure that you're able to get your hand relaxed on the string and get that connection to the back. A great way to do this is to use a shot trainer just on a band. You can also do it on your bow, but use a shot trainer on your band and practice drawing with the elbow and keeping this line here rather than having this angle, which is what you're doing at the moment. So you want to practice eliminating that and keeping this nice and straight. So I'll show you that with the shot trainer now. So with the shot trainer, you can simply put this over your elbow. This is just with a really light band, and you come up here and then you practice drawing, and this is just with my elbow because I'm not attached here. I'm just drawing. This is just resting here in the normal position, and notice how the hand and the arm is all connected. I'm not kinked like this. This is a really great way to practice that connection. This is going to be super important to help you relieve some of that tension that's in the upper traps here. Rather than being up here, you want to make sure that you're drawing, it's keeping nice and low, and you're making sure that's a nice movement. At the moment with that tension, it's a little bit too tense here, and you get this tension in the upper traps. And then later on in the shot, that affects the release too. So make sure to identify and address the set position, and also make sure to have a look at the wrist. Try and make sure to keep this line and definitely work on the wrist kink and the draw here, keeping that connection, keeping it as one unit. So those are two super important points. Now finally, although the release is decent, there's a decent movement backwards, there's no outward movement, it can be improved. In particular, if we look at the example from the front, you can see on release there's a movement of the bow arm. The bow arm moves to one side and it's not directed enough towards the target. There's a bit of a collapse here. And this comes from the full draw position where there's more tension in the upper traps and the expansion isn't in a natural, relaxed movement. So this makes the expansion and then the release a bit more forced, and then it makes it more likely that on release you're going to collapse one way. So working on the previous areas I mentioned is going to improve this, but then also make sure that you do some clicker expansion drills and stuff like that to make sure that when you come up you can expand through the clicker and then expand a little bit past the clicker as well. Your expansion, as we can see here in this clip, your expansion is pretty good in terms of you're expanding through the clicker nicely, but because when you're doing this you're using more of the upper traps and the alignment isn't there because of the kink in the wrist and the elbow position, and that as you're drawing, because of that it means that when you release, and this is an exaggeration, when you release there's a bit of a collapse that way. Don't worry, it's not that bad at all, but what you need to do to counteract this is maybe some double bow roll drills, some of the flexibility expansion drills I just mentioned, and making sure that you keep that delivery to the target when you release and make sure that you don't collapse one way. And this is going to improve from the stuff I said about set position and specifically this connection on the side and removing tension in the upper traps. Is going to be a massive area for you and really improve your technique. So I hope you found that video useful. I hope, Peter, that you've got some great feedback there in terms of going away to work on your set position and the connection on the front and the wrist specifically, and then also the release and making sure you maintain that as you release and follow through. As always, be sure to smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll also put the social media links down below. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.